It's one of the top 10 largest in Ontario. We've got 320 provincial parks. It was also the 7th one created back in 1944.
Wow.
At that time, no highway through it. That was just completed in 1960. So,
That's too bad.
yeah, I guess it is, yeah.
So how long have you been there?
I've been there since 1983.
Wow. So you really like it there?
I do. You'd have to drag me out. I work in Superior Provincial Park. I live on Lake Superior, so it's got a pretty strong sense of place for me.
I guess it does.
Yeah.
When did this start, this sense of place?
Well, I spent some time as a kid on the West Coast in BC, in Vancouver, until I was 12 years old. So, in my world, I thought that's what every place looked like. So I was a little disappointed when my family moved to Southern Ontario and there was no mountains and not really a sense of being on a Great Lake near Lake Ontario. And then I always thought I'd go back west, and then I had seen pictures of Lake Superior, and I thought, that reminds me a lot of the West Coast. And then, of course, when I came up here, I just fell in love with the place. It's got much better seasons than the West Coast. We get a beautiful fall, we get winter you can do something with, lots of snow. And the fresh water is, you can drink it, which we did. We got our drinking water out of the lake. We had no running water for the first 7 years that we lived in our cabin. And so I think it's just a different connection. I grew up in the suburbs where I couldn't have told you that the sun, where the sun was at different times of the year, and exactly here. Like, you just have a much more connection to your natural landscape. And Lake Superior is just, it can be very humbling. It's a beautiful landscape. Today we just did a tour of the shoreline of the park with some park staff, so we went all the way from Agua Bay up here.
Nice.
We kind of diminished the wilderness a little bit for one day, but we saw a lot, and it's a spectacular shoreline. We had a lot of fun, and it's a very powerful landscape.
I can see that.
Yeah,
a lot
of some real diversity, I think, and we've got some unique things, some species at risk like peregrine falcons. It's nice to see them coming back. Arctic alpine plants, and then the common stuff that you would see all around the lake is still nice to see too.
Do you have any concerns?
Do I have any concerns? Yeah, I hope that I feel like freshwater is going to be up for grabs. It's interesting that when the explorers first came through here, they were looking for the Northwest Passage. So they were really disappointed to find another body of fresh water. They were looking for salt water. And so their disappointment may turn out to be our richest resource here.
Yes. Yes. And are you seeing pressures put on right now that are different from when you came?
I would say not so much here, because we have, a large portion of the Canadian shoreline is protected, from Lake Superior Provincial Park, and now we've got these conservation reserves that link Lake Superior Provincial Park to Michipicoten Post Provincial Park, and then just west of Michipicoten Bay, that area is it's the last one to be hopefully designated soon as conservation reserve, and then you're into Puckasaw National Park. So that's a huge section of shoreline that is in some kind of protected area. So, but sure, there's going to be, there's pressures we're seeing in our own bay here, and.
While you're protecting, though, the three states are not doing nearly that same amount of protection of the shoreline.
Yeah. Well, it is different on having so much that's crowned or public land on the Canadian side. But there's I think some of the pollutants in Lake Superior are things that are airborne. You can control the point sources, but some of those pollutants are still coming in because it's such a huge surface area that so much comes in from stuff in the atmosphere that you don't have a lot of control in. So stuff that happens in other parts of the country, around the globe, could affect the quality of our water.
What about climate change? Are you fearful of that, or thinking that's...
I think it's going to have an impact. We're starting to see a lot more algae. You may have seen that when you're walking.
Sure did.
Wouldn't have seen much of that, even, I would say, 26 years ago when I was first here. Wouldn't see much algae.
Yeah.
Down at the pictographs, we start to see a little bit more. It's awfully nice when you can have a warm summer and you can swim in the lake. We enjoyed that today, but there's a downside to that in that, our invasive species that take hold in other Great Lakes that we haven't seen too much here, is that going to start to be more attractive for them and start to impact on some of the other fisheries?
Yeah. What would you like to see done in the future? Anything you'd like to, it's kind of a desire for the future of this lake that you would...
Oh, Well, I'd like to see it stay the same,
Yeah.
not, I mean, in some places it's actually cleaned up better. There are
Yes.
some places where there were pollutants going in from different industries, and some of that has been cleaned up. But I think just the value, like we have to realize the value,
Yeah.
the beauty of it, but just the value of the fresh water, this huge source of fresh water. And
What about the trap rock mining that's proposed from up here?
I probably not, probably shouldn't really say too much about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too bad because it's the type of thing, jobs are, it starts to be it can be very divisive in a small community.
Yep.
So it's,
We'll let it go.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
and
well,
we've certainly
it's-
appreciated meeting you and all that you've done to help us on our journey.
Yeah, well, it's people around the lake are probably somewhat more connected than we even are to other people in our own provinces or states, because when you've spent some time on this lake, and especially intimately, either hiking along the shore or paddling in it, you do feel,
Yeah.
and seeing the seasons and the different moods, you do get a strong connection.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do. We want to walk it, we want to paddle it, we want to do everything. It's just, there's no single way to see this lake.
No, and there's next year, the year after. Maybe when your knees are recovering, you'll want to paddle around it.
There you
But,
go.
yeah. There's many ways to see it, and or ski around it when it freezes again.
Yeah.
If hopefully it does freeze again.
Well, we'd like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd like some winter experiences up here.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, is we're not getting as, it used to be once we got snow, we got a lot of snow, and now we're starting to get some of those winters that are more like typical of places further south where you get that freeze-thaw stuff. And, once winter's here, I'd like snow. I don't like that
We're with you.
melting and freezing and
Kate and
stuff.
I love the winter and love snow.
Yeah.
And we're feeling bad about what we've been experiencing in recent times.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you for welcoming
Yeah.
us here and being such a big part of our journey.
Yeah, well, we've enjoyed it, following it, and I hope it makes a difference, that more people get, sort of get the message and get interested in having a connection to the lake too.
Thank you.